Thanks very much. So we'll kick off with the first item we have on our agenda. Lisa, would you like to give an introduction into the Emergency Town Centre Fund?
I will, while I mute myself. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So this is, I would imagine by now, not going to come as a surprise to anybody on the call. But just to be clear about the reasons for the call today and the type of thing we would like to discuss with you. So it was announced a few weeks ago now that Somerset West and Taunton Council were going to release £525,000 with the specific purpose of supporting our town centres. So for us and the consideration we've been given to the areas at the moment, so that's Wellington, Taunton and Minehead as the three main town centres, but then also we did consider the impact of COVID-19 on our more neighbourhood retail centres, we're calling them, but you will have your own name for what you call your town centre, and the impact on those slightly more rural or coastal areas as well. So we wanted to make sure that the funds could be allocated in a way that each of those areas could get support for the businesses and their local economy based around their town centre. The purpose of the grant it's called the Emergency Town Centre Fund, and because we are expecting that there will be interventions put in place quite quickly as a result of this funding. We know that our businesses are in trouble now. Some of them are doing well and have survived really well throughout this period, but we do know that some of our town centre businesses are struggling with adapting their businesses and with meeting the new type of demand for town centres and online shopping. So we're very aware of the fact that there are very real struggles, especially within our small and medium enterprises and our local independent businesses, who maybe aren't quite as robust as those larger chains who are also struggling. So the purpose of this grant is to put emergency interventions in place in local areas to support your local businesses and to support your town centres to make sure that they can be thriving and to recover from COVID-19. So each of the areas has been allocated a specific amount of grant funding, and I'm sure hopefully you're all aware by now that the allocation for Watchet is £25,000. In terms of how the fund is going to be managed, and this conversation that Loretta and I have already had to get some initial ideas, but what we're looking for as a local authority is a local organisation who is constituted and set up to manage treasury and finance in such a way that the grant can be managed in a safe way. But in some areas it's going to differ. And what we're looking for from you is your local steer on which organisation you think is the right organisation within your town to actually be to receive that grant funding, to look after it, and to actually be accountable for delivering the interventions or projects you would like to do with the money. So that's one thing that we'd like to talk to you about today, is who you think is the right organisation to hold this funding. We would absolutely expect, whoever holds the funding, we would absolutely expect you to have a working group around the grant. And we would hope that would have representatives from different groups, businesses and other interested parties. So there's a real round view of how the funding could be spent, the type of things it could be spent on, and that the group would get feedback from businesses and visitors and shoppers on the type of things they would like to see in the town centre, or that would help the businesses in the town centre to be stronger and more robust during this time. So that's the fund itself. We're looking to get the funding out into somebody's bank account, whoever that might be, as soon as we possibly can, because the purpose of this is to get some quick wins out there. The expectation is that the whole grant would be spent within a 12-month period, which shows the kind of slightly longer term time frame for it. If there are some things that you think will help your town centres that you might want to do in the spring or summer of next year, but ultimately we do want to see some delivery of some interventions or projects this side of Christmas. So we're looking to work with you really quickly to get a grant agreement in place and to get the funding signed over to the right organisation, so you can start delivering what you need to for your own town centre. I think that's probably all I'll say on that for now, but happy to open up for any comments at this stage on anything I've just said.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, Loretta, I can see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Lisa. That's a good explanation of what the funding is for and how it should be spent and when it should be spent and how quickly. As you've said in previous conversations and with discussions with other people around the town, the Chamber of Trade here is one organisation which could be a good organisation to hold the money. It is a properly constituted one and everything else. It has a constitution, it has a bank account, it has a chairman and a committee. But the thing is, around that, instead of having that committee, would be to invite members of different organisations to join in a working group. They've also worked up the actual committee of Watchet, which I'm a member, but I'm not here as a member of that today. The actual committee of Watchet has already sort of worked up a rough guide of some of the things that they'd like to see. And the chairman, John Richards, has got that available. And I think it's best for him to sort of talk to that. But this, again, this is a discussion to decide who, what, where and when, really. And, you know, the ideas are that we make this town better for people, you know, to have much better experience when they come to the town. We are suffering in some areas. And I think that this funding will help to go a long way. And if it was all right with you, Craig, I would like to hand over to John Richards to perhaps give an idea, unless anybody else wants to speak first to what Lisa's told us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I did see John Richards' hand come up. I have muted you, John, and I can't physically unmute you without you selecting the button. So hopefully you can find it. Brilliant, you've got it.
Done it.
Thanks.
Yes, that one popped up. Right, if I can go ahead a little bit, the committee of Watchet, most of the members of this meeting have had several gets together over the last week to see what the business feedback over the last few months has been. And it's been quite varied, but everybody is looking to get more people into the town centre to shop. So we've come up with a long list of proposals or ideas that have come out much more than the money allocated. But if it comes off, I'm sure Watchet can put some money from its funds in as a kind of part funding. But the general idea was to get more people in. And some of the ideas that have come forward, apart from free parking, which I'll get to at the end, is to use the Christmas tree brackets in the town to put up flags and signs hanging from all the shops to make it look more attractive. The carnival usually does a few in the summer, but it would be nice to have them most of the year. The first thing, to increase the amount of bike racks in the town, because we're getting a lot of cyclists who end up leaving their bikes everywhere, and a rack of, say, 16 bike racks would be exceptionally useful. We would like to look at increasing all the flower displays in the town that the Chamber provides. We do all the static flower displays, the Town Council does the hanging baskets, or Town Council District. We put a figure on that. We would wish to update the Watchet website, visit watchet.co.uk, to be mobile friendly. That is one thing that's come from quite a lot of the accommodation providers, and as the website is very good, it gets a lot of hits, but it's not very good on a mobile phone or a tablet. Then, perhaps most critical, is a Watchet app. It's been discussed around the town for several years. It's not a cheap project, not to do it properly and have it available on all the Play stores and that, but we think that would be a very good method of getting extra people into Watchet if it was marketed. On top of that, there's a few smaller things, some extra signage in the town for the shops, redoing all our town notice boards that Watchet own, which at the moment is 3 with a 4th one in the making. And the last thing that's very important to us is Christmas time and bringing visitors in for the Christmas month. This year, we've had a lot of problems trying to get the Christmas trees that we put up in the town sorted. We've finally got around to getting the people to do the work, but we are looking at the process of replacing the lights. The lights we have have faded over the years. They're about half the brightness, and really to be spectacular, they need to be replaced. And those of you who know Watchet, we also have a Santa sleigh that goes around at Christmas, half run by Watchet, half by the Carnival. Excuse me, 1 second. Rain late, but it's about down to update in about 4 flags and all.
John, I just wanted to say, I think it may be the same for everyone here, but the reception or the connection is a bit weak at the moment. So
oh, right.
It's okay. I think what we can try, if you don't mind turning off your camera, that may just alleviate some bandwidth on your connection, and then the audio may come through a bit stronger.
I've always had this problem, but I'm on a fiber connection. I'm just trying to figure out how to do it. Stop. No. There we are. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's still a bit dodgy for some of the attendees. Oh yeah, thumbs down from Ian. Can we come back to you? Would that be a good thing?
Yes, no problem.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Peter, I can see your hand is raised. Thank you for stepping in there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig, for hosting this. And yeah, if I just say that I'm here today representing the Coastal Communities team in Watchet. Several people on the call are members or know quite a lot about the Coastal Communities team. I think there's two things that I would want to say. Firstly, I listened with interest to the proposals that JR put forward, and I think they're all worthy of debate. I'd like to throw some others into the mix for consideration, probably at a later date. And they would be the reopening of the Market Street toilets in the centre of town for when visitors arrive by car. And as I look out of my window, I can see that the car park is absolutely full. And the first thing people want to do is to use the loo, and they're closed. Secondly, I think we need to look to a more sustainable future, and I'd like to see the CCT's proposals for a electric vehicle charging point in the Market Street car park progressed. We applied for a grant. The deadline date was the 31st of December 2019, and that application to the council for funding for that project has rather gone into the long grass with COVID. Totally support the idea of cycle racks in the car parks. I also think that this funding could be used to have a serious look at some of the congestion and public safety issues, particularly along Swain Street. There was an absolutely superb photograph on the front page of the Free Press last week taken by Janet Tapp, showing two heavy goods vehicles trying to pass. I think something really seriously needs to be looked at there. I also think that the whole issue of car park charging needs to be looked at. I have to say, looking at the evidence of the past few weeks of free car parking in Watchet, I can't agree that that has been a positive move. But I think the car parking charge structure does need to be looked at. And I also think that we could be looking at the better use of the CCT's community car, and that would be facilitated by a dedicated parking space for that vehicle at a location in one of the car parks. So I'd like to throw those sort of ideas into the mix for a later discussion. The second thing that I want to say is that one of the fundamental questions that Lisa asked was for an organisation to act as the fund holder and to act as the host for the discussions that need to take place. I think there are three possible organisations that could be considered here. One is Watchet, the second is the Coastal Communities team, and the third is the Town Council. So I've declared an interest as the chair of Coastal Communities team. I'll declare an interest as a Town Councillor as well. And out of the three organisations, my pick would be for the Town Council to do that, because both the Town Council and the CCT have got a track record of running working parties, have got a track record of consulting with the community, and have got a track record of delivering. So those two organisations would be my two preferred organisations, but I think the Town Council would be my preferred out of the three. So that's what I wanted to say, and thank you for the opportunity to say it.
Thank you, Peter. Shall we, Lisa, sorry, yeah, I can see your hand raised.
Just while we're covering off the subject of who may be the right organisation to do this, we will actually absolutely be led by you as a community, and we would hope that you would all work together anyway, regardless of who is the budget holder. But we will need to have an indication of who it is that you've selected as the grant holder by the 2nd of September. I'll come on to why we've got some deadlines later on in this meeting. But just to give you a little bit of an understanding about the role and responsibility, because it might help you make a decision. So the grant holder will be expected to sign a funding agreement with Somerset West and Taunton Council, which stipulates some terms and conditions around the grant funding. One of the responsibilities, as well as actually designing and coming up with a plan for the expenditure for £25,000, and we're looking to have that within that first week of September back from you as a community. So it's developing the actual plan on how you would like to spend the 25,000, what kind of things you want to spend it on, with some indicative timeframes for delivery. It will be signing and holding the grant agreement, and being responsible and accountable for all of the safe transactions associated with the grant. And every 8 weeks, we're going to expect a report back on how that funding has been spent, what kind of feedback you've had from the community on the kind of things that you've put into place. And how you, at the very end, so that's every 8 weeks throughout the project, we'll be expecting a sort of a more formal written report back into us on how that money's been spent and the outcomes. And at the end of the year, or if you spent the funding sooner than that, at the end of the term you've spent the funding by, then we will expect again a report back to explain to us how the grant has been spent in a way that has shown that it's had some positive impact on the recovery of businesses post-coronavirus. So there is some administration that's going to be involved in this, which might help your decision making around who is going to be the right group to take the grant on.
Thank you, Lisa. I think Janet, Anne had their hand raised.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm Janet Tabb. I own Cotton Street, a little business in Watchet. We've had quite long discussions amongst the business people in the town about who should hold the money. And as I understand it, this money is to regenerate businesses and the town. Now, if it's handled by a town council, how many people on that council are actually business owners? That's why I think it should be handled by a trade organisation. You know, we know the ups and downs of running a business. We know how COVID's affected us. And unless you actually own a business, you don't really know. And it has been hard. We listen to people every day who come in our shops and tell us what they want to see in the town or what would make them stay in the town. I've had several people saying just outside where the car park entrance is here next to the shop, saying if only they put some flowers there, it would look pretty walking from the car park before you get into town. So it's all those little things that I think the business people know what people want. And I think they know more than what a town council would. And not only that, it puts extra pressure on the town council. I'm not saying they couldn't handle it. I would just prefer to see it handled through businesses with obviously representations from all the other organisations. Tracy, do you want to?
No, I completely agree. As businesses, we see more people every single day than any of the town council or the CCT. We see them, they speak to us, they tell us what they want, what they like, what they don't like. So I do think that we will have probably a better insight into what is needed to do to make it better.
Thanks very much, Janet. Yeah, John Richard, sorry, I've muted you again. So hopefully your connection has stabilised a bit. Are you able to? Oh, brilliant, you have them. Thank you.
I've been going for more than 30 years, and I've been chairman for, I think, 50 years, something like that. We have a reasonable sum of money in the bank, which we hang on to like gold dust, but we're willing to invest quite a bit of it back. We've also the summer instead of charging the keepers for. We have good financing.
Yeah, sorry, John. We are losing you again. Unfortunately, I'll
just turn the video off and let's see what happens. I'm going to have to get a different. We have very robust financial procedures. We've just set up. We've changed treasurer. We've set up for the bank date that any 2 of 3 committee members have to sign.
John,
purpose and also that finance.
John, sorry, it's Lisa here. I'm just wondering, John, whether it might be a good idea to see if you moved your position. I know, being on many Zoom calls before, sometimes all you need to do is get up and move into a different room in the house, and you get a better signal. And it's either how close you are to your Wi-Fi box or how close you are to get some mobile phone signal. So I'm just wondering if you moved, it might help.
I'm right next to my router.
Maybe you could write in the messages on the screen, John, if that might help to get your point.
I haven't, with the Android phone, I haven't got a message. It'll be very short. Somebody else can repeat. Councillor Wetlaw knows all our business as she's the vice chairman of Watchet. Perhaps she can just tell about all our financial means and so on, and I'll keep quiet.
I mean, now your video is off. That actually came through really well. So, I mean,
okay.
You're happy to have another go. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I was saying we are fully constituted. We've been going I think it's nearly 30 years as Watchet, and we have a substantial, well, I don't say substantial, a lot of money in the bank that we harbour very carefully, that we've built up over the years. But we are willing to reinvest some of it in this project. We've already paid for the summer planting in the town instead of charging the shopkeepers. And as I mentioned, we're looking to see if we can afford to give the Christmas trees this year instead of charging them, if we can sort out the lights. I personally think that we are, as a business organisation with 76 members and 4 more joining next week if they pay their money, are the right organisation to lead. And I obviously must declare an interest in some respect because I am the financial director of the CCT, but it's the council and the CCT has a more if I use the word long-winded, you know what I mean, way of actually allocating money and funds and doing projects, whereas we're all business people who work every day at business and know what needs to be done quickly. That's the lot. Finished.
That came through perfectly. Thanks very much, John.
Okay.
Would anybody like to come back on anything that's been mentioned? John, hi. If you would like to unmute.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. I guess as the town council's been mentioned, maybe I can make a comment or two, and then maybe Sarah will also add a comment. I also ought to declare an interest. I'm also a member of the CCT, so I have an interest from that point of view. Clearly, I can't speak on behalf of the whole council. As you know, councils work through full council and committees. We don't actually have a next full council meeting till the I think it's about the 12th of September. And basically, I wanted to say up front, I don't actually disagree with any of the comments that everybody has already said, whether it's John Richards, Janet Tapp, Peter Murphy, or whatever. I think there's a lot of groups here who've got a lot of good ideas, and there's pros and cons of each particular route. The town council was asked to come along to see whether you might want us to do something, and were it to be deemed appropriate that the town council might be asked to do this, I'm sure the town council does have the capability and will be willing to consider doing it. But I do recognise it will take a little bit of time and process to sort of get there. On the other hand, I would note that we've heard a bit from Watchet, we've heard a bit from CCT. One point I would make is we don't have a rep of the visitor centre here today. And as we know, the visitor centre have a grant from District Council specifically to run the visitor centre and to generate and promote tourism within the town. Now, I know this grant is primarily for business, but business and tourism go hand in hand. So that's another example where there might be slightly different views about how and what will be the best choice of particular projects. I personally don't have any particular axe to grind to say whether it should be Watchet or CCT or Town Council. We need something that's agile, fast, and can respond. But what I would say we need is a very strong governance group, so that were it to be Watchet or were it to be the CCT or were it to be the visitor centre or even the town council, you need that working group which is almost separate, where you'd have, say, a Watchet rep, the town council rep, a CCT rep, a visitor centre rep or whatever, which would balance the views of the different little constituencies to be able to say, well, how do we get the right balance here, rather than it just being driven from a Watchet standpoint or from a CCT standpoint or whatever. But that's really where I see things from the town council point of view. I don't know whether Sarah wants to add a comment as clerk from her point of view.
Thanks, John. No, I think I've listened with interest with what everybody said. I think that all organisations that have been mentioned are fully capable of holding the grant. But I think the most important thing is, as John has said, that we have a really good governance group with all representatives, so that the money is allocated fairly and everybody's heard, all the suggestions are heard. I do agree with Janet, you know, that it will be the businesses that know a lot more than the town council about what the town would want. But I'm quite happy to just go with either one of the groups that have been mentioned. From the town council's point of view, it sounds like a lot of work, and I have a huge workload already, so I know the councillors would be helping, but I would have thought that one of the other groups would, well, they're all capable of holding the grant. So that's all I've got to say. Okay.
Thanks, Sarah. Loretta, I can see your hand raised.
Thanks, Craig. I'd just like to come back on a couple of points. Yeah, I agree with Sarah and Janet and with John and with Peter. There are three of the three groups that chose. It wouldn't be Watchet led as such. If you remember right at the beginning when I said that it would form a core, and that core would then invite a member of the town council, a member of the district council, a member of the visitor centre, and a member of other groups that would have an interest in the regeneration of the businesses of the town. But obviously, if it was Watchet, who are the business people, like the council is the civic leaders, the Watchet is the business leaders, and I think that is where it would be a good place to think. I would declare an interest. As John said, I'm the vice chairman of Watchet, but I'm not here as that. I think that also it would be good we have a district councillor on that group as well, you know, and I would like to be that district councillor because I live in Watchet and I know the businesses, and I have run a business in Watchet myself. So I think that governance would be town council, district council. You know, you would have those people there who would keep a watching brief. But as Lisa has already told us, reports have to go back to the district. District will be keeping a watching brief on what we're doing. So therefore, I think that once it's set up, once it's agreed who has the money, once it's agreed how we're going to how this money is going to be dispersed and used, that is then where you come up with your governance group. Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. Does anybody want to add anything to any of the comments that have been mentioned so far? Ian, hi. Yeah, please do.
Hi. Well, first of all, I'm thankfully not a member of anything except Williton Parish Council, which I don't think would be an interest, and as a district councillor. I have a gut feeling here that I tend to follow the view of Peter Murphy. What we're talking about is basically to get through from this meeting a fund holder. And that really just means somebody who can hold the funds and can every 8 weeks say what the money has been spent on. I think perhaps Lisa in a minute will correct me if that's not the basic function we're looking for. And I have every sympathy with the traders of Watchet, as with traders throughout the district, over the way this has impacted them. But this is public money which is being put in the hands of an organisation to see that the high street of the particular town, in this case Watchet, Swain Street in their case, is actually revitalised. And there are other, as has been indicated, if whatever organisation runs it, they would have representation from other interest groups. The natural umbrella under which that happens, and the sort of tree under which that happens, in my view, should be the town council. But that doesn't mean that the town council has to do the fine detail of the plan, because it seems to me a good plan has been put forward by Watchet as to how to use the money. So surely, with the spirit of cooperation, which is great in Watchet between different organisations, that the detail of the plan, the need to spend, the finding of the suppliers of whatever is required, that surely I cannot see that it's going to slow the process down if basically the town council in the form of Sarah is going to be see a budget, and basically the budget will be spent as quickly, and I'm sure can be disposed of at 25,000 in the 12 months that it needs to be spent. So I would tend to go, no disrespect to the other organisations, I would tend to go with the town council being a budget holder and a natural point through which all organisations and individuals that have an interest in seeing the high street flourish, I think it's the natural point at which all those interests are drawn together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Did I see a hand come up? No, I don't think I did. I've noticed that Liz McGrath has joined today's session. Liz, are you happy to just introduce yourself? So,
sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Am I on sound? I am, aren't I? I'm not muted.
You're all good. You're all good.
Hello, Liz McGrath. I'm one of the Watchet Coastal Community Team directors. And I was just thinking, I'm not sure I have anything to add to this debate, so I was thinking that perhaps you could do without me.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much. Lisa, yeah, lovely.
Yeah, so hi guys, just to clarify, so yes, we are interested in who you want to put forward as the grant holder and how you want to manage that grant. But actually, the other part of today's session is really to hear some of your ideas around what you would like to do and get some debate going around some of the ideas. And it's hopefully then that will help you when you actually, whoever the group is, when you formulate your plan to send back into the council, then you will have some ideas represented within that. So we're really interested in the types of projects, what the businesses, especially what the businesses think is required to support them. So there are two elements really of this fund. One is around business advice and support, social media training, promotional activity, anything that will help your local businesses to actually run and be successful during this time. And then also the other half of it is looking at aesthetics of the town, if you think that will also be a draw. And obviously in a lot of our areas, we're also looking particularly at tourism and how to boost tourism as part of this funding as well. So it's quite a range of stuff that the money could be spent on. So I'm really interested in hearing some of your ideas. And I know that we've had a few ideas that have been shared with us today from John and others. But I'm wondering if anybody has anything else to add about some of the things that might be able to be delivered with the money.
We had two hands come up exactly at the same time. Liz, I'll come to you if that's okay first. Thanks.
Well, one thought that I have, Lisa, in the light of what you were just saying, is that there is a potential for Watchet and the Watchet Learns project, which will be launching very shortly. We're making an appointment hopefully on Thursday, and then starting the project properly in September. There's potential for there to be collaboration between Watchet and Watchet Learns for traders to develop a collaborative approach towards their offer for tourism to benefit everybody. So for example, rather than people who are working in the hospitality industry feeling as though they are each other's competitors, which they are, working together with the support and the coordination of Watchet Learns to make a team offer to tourists where the providers are each making a separate and different and discrete offer. But that would need facilitation, it would need space, it would need time, and therefore some funding would be useful. But I could imagine how that could be very successful, as has happened in some other towns that I know of, where collaboration rather than competition has ultimately benefited everybody.
Thank you, Liz. Ian, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it's just struck me that one of the biggest things that brings tourism into Watchet is the West Somerset Railway. And as we know, at the moment, they are completely inoperative. I thought that was maybe generally so for most of the preserved railways, but I do know of some that are operating. So I would have thought it would have been good to have had a representative from them here today. And I don't know if they were invited, because they do, as far as I am aware, the Watchet is the busiest station, sells more tickets are sold to Watchet than any other station other than the two terminal stations. So it must bring a lot of visitors into Watchet. I'm a little concerned about sustainability and market research. Okay, you can't go off and do market research and get quick results. I appreciate that. And sometimes you need to go by the experience of people in businesses to know how to get their customers through the door. But what are the effects of COVID? We know, for instance, that people are not traveling abroad in the numbers they have been, or if they are, they're not going with the confidence that they're going to be able to come home and go back to work. And that must be increasing, you would imagine, the number of visitors that will make UK visits to other places. But will they actually do it? I know of people who have already said, no, we won't come and visit you. It isn't because of my aftershave or the state of my house. It's because of COVID, and they're afraid to travel, even within the UK. And I don't know what the answers are, but I am concerned that we could make Watchet look like a great destination to come to. But if the people are not prepared to actually come out of their homes in the first place and travel and be those visitors, then it's just trying to get into a market that's not there. So I don't know I quite like the plan and the suggestions from Watchet. I have no argument about wanting to finance those things and get them done. And so going back to who holds the funds, I can't imagine, I think I've got it right, that in fact Watchet could spend those funds tomorrow if they were put into their bank account, or they were given the green light to go ahead and order and know that the money would be given to them promptly. So that being the case, going back to who holds the funds, I would suggest that there's no reason why Town Council couldn't hold them, and there's a plan in place that seems fine from the traders. Maybe needs a bit of tweaking. And the other thing I've just said is I'm just concerned that whatever traders do, be it with their money or with public money, that we need to make sure it really will bring extra business into the town. Because let's face it, every community is trying to do this, especially ones that are have a tourism-based economy. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. I can see that John Richards has had his hand raised. We'll come to you shortly, Liz and Lisa. If you don't mind just turning on your audio, John, that would be great. Thanks. John, are you still there?
Yes. Hang on. Are you? Oh, it works now. It has to wait for your hand. It's a very short one. We did do a lot of consultation to get together all our proposals. I would actually disagree with Councillor Aldridge on visitors. Having seen the amount of visitors in the town in the last couple of weeks has been more than we've ever had before, I would say. I've had long talks with the railway, but to try and get anybody while they're closed down to come with any comments has been almost impossible. They are a member of Watchet. I think they haven't paid this year, but they are a member. And it's interesting, the statistics for the Visit Watchet website, we're halfway through August and we've already had 7,000 unique visits, and we only had 10,000 unique visits to the website in July. So people are looking to come to Watchet. We have nearly all our events have been cancelled, so they want to come here. So we've got to get them into the shops, because most of them were just wandering around. The car parking, which we mentioned earlier, which I'd like to say something at the end of this about, is vital. But we do seem to have the visits, and the largest amounts of hits, apart from our web camera, were for the accommodation pages. So people are looking for holidays. And as for us spending the money, wouldn't that be lovely? But this would be run by a committee and it would be a group decision. All our members would be asked again what they want. If we held the money, we would be very wise with it, and we are very parsimonious with how we spend it. And I have a feeling from what Sarah said that the town council wouldn't want to handle the money, because to pass out any money, it has to go to a committee and a council meeting, and there could possibly be some long delays and a lot more work for lots of small bills. That's it, finished.
Thank you, John. Liz, should we come to you next?
Sorry, very briefly, to endorse a couple of things that John Richards has just said. The town is absolutely heaving with people and has been for the last few weeks, overcrowded. I think people are unclear about the offer, where they can go and what they can spend money on. And I think a coherent offer, which says you can go here for this food, there for that food, here for that kind of present, here for this kind of antique or junk or whatever, a clear, coherent piece of publicity, which gives all the traders an opportunity to say, and if they had collaborated, if they were to collaborate, an opportunity to say what they each offer distinctly. So the town is already very crowded. I don't think we need to worry about whether people are coming. If they're staying in England, they're trying to get to the coast, and we're coast according to people who look at a map. So we're very crowded. I think car parking is a big issue. I wondered whether we could perhaps talk to Tamir Associates and see if they could offer a temporary area of the old paper Mills site, but perhaps there's too many health and safety issues there. But car parking is an issue. The queues to get into Watchet the other day, a midweek day, were right back to beyond this side, the north side of the railway station, and right up North Street, West Street. And that was for people to get into the town, and every car park space in town was full. So two things, getting people in and then being clear about what they can spend their money on, I think would be really helpful.
Thank you, Liz. John Irvine, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I thought I'd add a couple of comments. I'm no longer associated directly with the railway, but as it's been mentioned, I'd like to just put that in context. The railway is not able to open until next spring because of COVID, and a lot of people have been saying, oh, well, other railways can open, why not this one? Without anybody really knowing the detail of how different railways are set up. One simple example, the current West Somerset Railway rolling stock is open carriages, they're not closed compartments. So maintaining COVID security is much more challenging at the moment. And so for a number of combination of reasons, and we're not going to second guess the safety issues, they've decided not to open until next spring. What they have decided to do is a number of events, whether it's at Minehead or Bishop's Lydeard or Watchet. And for example, Watchet Station Friends have just announced they're going to start opening, a bit like the Market House Museum is about to reopen a number of days per week. But I do know a number of people who come to Watchet expecting the railway to be open, then find it isn't, are then disappointed. And that plays into what Liz was saying about having a coherent offer to people. So involving the railway or the railway friends in terms of perhaps getting the message over, well, we'd like to be open, but because of COVID we can't, but this is what you can do on the railway, but also this is what will happen next year is important. And I'd like to address the two issues of the timing. I agree from what I've seen, Watchet is heaving, and some people have said, well, we've got more people here at the moment than we had last year. Earlier during lockdown, there was nobody, and now we've got a larger number. But every year, the railway has been absolutely key to Watchet. Something like 30,000 visitors a year. You just have to see when the train comes in and then what happens in the Market House Museum. I suspect at the moment we're getting the situation that people can't travel abroad, they don't want to go too far, so they're doing a local holiday. So they're coming to Watchet irrespective of the railway. That may happen over the next month or two, but it may not happen again next year. So we've got to look at not only what we need to do for the next few months, but what we need to do to make it sustainable in 2021 and 2022. And I do think the railway will have an ongoing key part of that. So I think the strategy has got to look at both the short-term and the mid-term needs and put this integrated offering that Liz talked about as a way to address the issue.
Thank you, John. Yeah, Ian, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you. There's a certain conundrum to be sorted here. So the streets of Watchet, and I agree too, are heaving with visitors. So why aren't they spending their money in the shops? Is it because they haven't got the money in the first place? Because let's face it, a lot of people are either reluctant to spend if they've got the money because they don't know what lies ahead financially for them and their families, or they are just scratching along and maybe can afford to visit a place, but will tend to go to the things which don't cost much. And that's no disrespect to businesses, you know, but it's free to go into maybe a museum or walk along the seafront or walk along the coast, those sort of things. But as soon as you walk into a shop or a cafe, you're going to lose a £20 note. And while most of us, while on holiday, don't go on holiday to get rid of our £20 notes, if I might put it that way, this year is peculiar, which is why that market research would be interesting if it could only be done locally. Some kind of work done to actually ask visitors why they come to Watchet, what their experience is. There is one good thing about this. If lots of people are coming to Watchet, but they're not seeing the railway run or whatever, but they get a welcome in the town, which I'm sure they do, because Watchet is that kind of place, that they will go away and actually say, do you know what? Last year when we couldn't go abroad, we went to and it's a place worth going to see, especially when the railway's running again, and this and that. And of course, it would be nice to see the harbour with boats not sat on the mud. So, you know, there are pluses and minuses out of it. I am also a little concerned that there is some quicker way of consulting 76, maybe 80 members of Watchet on how to spend the money, but that 12, if they're all the seats are taken, and unfortunately we know one seat is vacant at the moment, 12 town councillors with the help of a professional clerk are not able to reach a decision more quickly. Usually you have a budget, you have a committee maybe that looks after that budget, but it's dealt with by that committee if it stays within budget. I think that's how the other committees work on Watchet Town Council, and they just report to main council if need be. So I don't really think there's a lot to choose over how quickly you would be able to spend the money if it was held by the town council or by the Chamber of Trade, by Watchet. But you know, no big deal.
Thanks, Ian. Lisa, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, just to say thank you, Ian, for that. There's some really good points raised there. I just wanted to go back to the point on market research. So having had these meetings with 4 other of our neighbourhood retail centres, what we're starting to build a picture of actually across all of you, just a big bank of some really good ideas. So I've been talking to each of the groups and everybody's been happy with this so far, that when they've come up with their sort of outline indicative plan for how they'd like to spend their money, we're sharing that around across the different areas, because some other areas might have some really good ideas that you could absolutely pinch, and they could pinch some of your ideas. So if you're happy with that, as we're sort of developing the plan and you're developing that, we'll start to share around everybody's plans so you can start seeing how other areas are spending their money. I would say that after speaking to Dunster, they have already gone out and done the research with the businesses and the research with members of the community and shoppers, and they've done that through their businesses as well. They've been out with a clipboard to stopping people asking questions. It's never going to be fantastically robust. You're not going to hit everybody over a long period of time, sample times of the day, but it's doable, and Dunster have done it. So actually what we probably need to do is start putting you in touch with each other so you can have conversations about how they may have done that. So it is doable in quite a short space of time.
Thanks, Lisa. So there's 5 minutes left on the clock. John, yeah, I can see your hand raised. Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back. Lisa made a very important point, and I fully support this thing about market research, because everybody will have ideas. Oh yes, let's do it on this, that, or the other, or Christmas trees. But ultimately, we need to know where we get most value from it. And I do agree that the market research is key. It's why earlier on I mentioned the visitor centre, because I know that a lot of people go into there. They're also an opportunity to ask people, and the visitor centre have a good background of doing that type of research with visitors coming to watch it, which is where I think they would add a very useful dimension to this debate.
Thank you. John Richards, I can see your hand raised. Tracy, I'll be with you in 2 ticks.
About the car parkings, we've only got 5 minutes left. I appreciate it's not necessarily for this discussion, but the council has been asked many, many times in the past if they can possibly change some of the tariffs. So either there's a 15-minute or 20-minute free period, or like when I'm traveling abroad, the first half an hour is like 20p, and then it's £1 a half hour after that, to allow shoppers to stop just to get things they want, even local people, would be so helpful to this town if possible. And the blocking and changing of the high street, somebody has recently put some barriers up, which has really made a difference to safety in the high street. The highways have been along apparently and looked at it and said, well, don't know who's put it there, but it's doing a good job, that's great. But that's a long-term strategy for the safety in the town, which really should involve highways, and they for 2.5 years, Watchet has been trying to get them to do something, they haven't. But the carking issue for short term at a low rate would really, really benefit the town, particularly in the quiet periods. That's it. Finished.
Thanks very much, John. Tracy, yeah, please do come in.
It's Janet. I just wanted to make well, it's been an observation I've made all the way through the meeting. There's a lot of talk about visitors to the town. Now, I've had a business in the town now for some 33 years. We had a news agents and gift shop and stuff like that. The visitors are the jam on your bread and butter. The locals are your bread and butter. And what we need to look at just as much as attracting more visitors is how we keep the locals down in town more. You know, we're very restricted. One thing that we are restricted with is the number of people you can have in a shop. It's not that people aren't spending, it's the restriction on the numbers of people that you can have in your shop at one time. If you go down to Tracy's hardware store, she could have 20 to 30 people in there under normal working conditions. She can't at the moment. She can probably have 5. So that's where the restrictions are in people spending. People are spending money, but you can only have so many customers in during one day. And I think we need to find out, do market research on what locals want just as much as what visitors want. That's it.
Thank you. It is almost to the hour. Lisa, do you want to just do a kind of next steps bit, and then we'll call it a day?
I will. I just wanted to make sure, Marcus, did you want to come in and just say anything, or are you just quietly observing today?
No, well, I have. I mean, yeah, I mean, I didn't. You do the introduction a lot better than me, Lisa. So that was good. And I must admit, we're here. Yeah, from my own point of view, you know, I and the rest of the team's here to listen today. It's not about us; it's about listening to you. And there's been some, you know, really good points raised. And I think what's the difference we've done. This is, I think, our last webinar we got planned at this moment in time. We've done Dulverton, we've done Porlock, we did Minehead, did Taunton, and I think what's been interesting is the different perspectives and the difference between each area, which is why I'm glad we've done these. We were very conscious when this fund first started, and I'm conscious it's now 3 o'clock, that it wasn't, you know, there was the high streets, but then there was also the town centres, because we believe that, you know, a place is shaped by its town centres as a place to work and live in. But we're also conscious that there are other organisations in each town, so that's why we wanted the webinars. And I said, I mean, Coastal Communities, well, you know, I'm on the Minehead Coastal Communities team, and I was on that before being elected. I've been members. I don't know if I'm still a member of Watchet or not, to be honest, John, but I've been a member of that in the past. And I think looking at the people on this call, and the fact that there's people on this call who are involved in the Coastal Communities team, involved in Watchet, involved in town council, some involved in all 3, and then some district councils on top of that. I think that shows where we are with Watchet. With regard to the tourism side, I think it was always our intention, this was about the high street and the town centre, and yeah, we're very conscious that there are organisations and visitor centres being run by various bodies. There's the Watchet one, obviously, in Porlock. You've got the other one, you've got Porlock's got theirs, you've got the Development Trust runs the one in Minehead, so you've got all those. So we were looking, and I think I'm not speaking out of turn by saying we were looking at how it develops, what we can do to help the actual high street side of the town centre, but we're conscious that all the rest needs looking at as well. And I think apart from that, I think we'll leave it at that for the time being. All the points have been noted. Interesting, Peter, all your points about things that need doing, I think we can probably all fundamentally agree with them, whether they're things that can be done quickly or not. And interestingly, I've always been a big shared space fan, and that will solve the problem in Swain Street, because actually I already think that Swain Street is a shared space, the way the drivers behave, because if you make it more difficult for people to drive, then they do drive more carefully. So I do think we have a big issue there. And can I just say on the visitor side, last week you couldn't get a room in Watchet or Minehead, and it was, yeah, the issue was we had a lack of accommodation on the last couple of weeks. This week you can get a room in Watchet and Minehead, so it's different in that respect. And there's too many people that I've spoken to, what made you come to West Somerset? And the answer was, couldn't get a place in Cornwall we could afford. And so there are people who are stumbling across West Somerset. And what is really impressive is they really love it. And they can't believe how nice it is. But as again, there's no point having the best kept secret in the Southwest. I'll leave it at that, hand you back over to Craig or Lisa.
I'll come in, I'll take it. So I'll just finish off then with the next steps, where we go from here in terms of the grant. So the idea is that as a community, you will decide who it is that's going to be the grant holder, and you will come back to us by the, oh gosh, now I can't remember the date. I think it's the 7th of September. But bear with me, I want to just check my calendar. Is that a Friday or is that a Saturday? Oh no, it's a Monday. That's okay. Okay, let's say the 4th of September. Let's try again, Lisa. So if you can come back to us by the 4th of September with the organisation that it is that you think would be the right organisation to run the grant, and we can have more conversations with you about that if you're struggling to make a choice on that one. The second thing that we need back during that week is your indicative plan of how you would like to spend the £25,000. So the reason that we say it's indicative is that we're aware of, actually, you might have some ideas and you want to scope them out, but you might want to do a little bit more research or a little bit more engagement with businesses and communities. But to enable us to sign a grant agreement off, we need to have an indicative plan to go against that. But then that forms your grant agreement, and we can get the grant agreement signed off and we can get the funding put into someone's bank account. So we need to have an indicative plan back of how you're going to spend the 25,000 within by the end of that week of the 2nd of September, which is the 1st of no 30th, 31st. I don't know what dates are. I'm like completely lost it. So the week beginning at the 30th of August, which ends the 4th of September, that's the week that we would like to see that stuff come back from you. We'll then sign the grant agreement with the right organisation, and the funding will be paid over to you. It's worth noting that Somerset West and Taunton Council will need to approve your indicative plan. So if there's anything on your indicative plan that we feel don't meet the criteria of the grant fund, or that maybe doesn't quite have a big enough bang for its buck, we will push back and we'll question you on that, and then you can come back to us if you've got a strong argument for it. But there may be some things on there that we might want to question you over. But hopefully the plan will be there as an indication, and then we can get the grant agreement signed off. So we're looking at the week beginning the 30th of August, ending the 4th of September, to have that back in from you guys. That will come into me. Following this meeting, what I'll do is that I will send a copy of the draft grant agreement, which has all the terms and conditions of the grant in it, and a copy of the grant guidance that goes along with that, which has a little bit more detail about some of the things you need to consider when you're deciding what to put in your plan, how we would expect you to use fair competition, and go out for quotes and things if you're going to purchase things in, just so we can make sure that the grant's being handled fairly. So some of the conditions will come out, the grant guidance will come out via Loretta. Loretta, you can share that with the group, if that's okay. I'm just seeing you nodding in the corner of your thumbs up. And then we'll have another conversation then that week of the 30th to the 4th to sign your grant agreement off and go from there. So hopefully that was clear. I know we've run a little bit over. If there are any questions on that, if not, that's the plan we'll go with.
Thanks very much, Lisa. And just for the benefit of Liz, who missed the first part of the session, I did announce, Liz, that the session has been recorded on Zoom, and we will put a recording of this webinar actually on the Somerset West and Taunton YouTube account. So if you do need to refer to this and to review the comments, then it will be there, normally within a couple of hours after the session finishes. So thank you very much for joining this afternoon's webinar. I think it's been really, really good to hear the suggestions and the ideas that have been put forward. Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.